Are you sure?
Here's the 30-second lesson on what legends know. Never ask a bride why she's getting married. Don't wear a skirt on a windy day. Deodorant is not a shower. Don't sniff chili flakes. And don't forget, saving is not investing. Legends don't just save, they invest in mutual funds. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
November 5, as I record this today, marks the 94th birth anniversary of Arjun Singh. Arjun Singh, one of Congress party's tallest leaders, held multiple portfolios, was governor of Punjab, a very young governor of Punjab, at a very crucial time, and before that, Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh as well. He also did some very interesting things in his life. He did not give any respite to foe or friend. See the order, I am saying foe or friend. So he was a bad rival to have. At the same time, when he was a friend, when he was in your camp also, you always had to keep guessing his moves because his mind worked in his own way. And that is how he became one of the more remarkable characters of our politics. Now those of you who've been reading me, watching me, listening to me sort of regularly also know that occasionally, once in a while, I revisit some of my writings on prominent characters in our contemporary history. Not just politics, in many facets of life. You know, I did a whole series on former civil servant, top civil servant, Naresh Chandra. Now, Arjun Singh, in comparison, was a very, very significant politician who came close to prime ministership a couple of times, or at least he thinks he was close to prime ministership a couple of times, and he was denied it. However, wherever he was, he made a difference. In fact, the first time I met Arjun Singh, he gave no impression that he was dealing with a real crisis. It was as if he was not dealing with any crisis, although it was in Bhopal a few days after the gas tragedy in December 1984. What struck me was his composure. He was cool, unruffled, and even exchanged old-fashioned banter with journalists. You could not miss the bonhomie between him and the Bhopal press corps. Arjun Singh, we all knew, had done more to improve the living standards of journalists with government housing and other freebies in the state of Madhya Pradesh than anybody before or after him. My first one-on-one conversation with him came in the following summer. It was a very short half-hour or maybe 40-minute Indian Airlines flight from Delhi to Chandigarh. He wouldn't stop smiling as all kinds of people lined up to congratulate him. He was on his way to take over as the new governor of Punjab at a very young age of 55. The Punjab governorship was not a job for retired people. The terror-hit state was constantly under president's rule, so the governor had to be in charge, not just a titular head, ceremonial head. Rajiv Gandhi had just signed a peace accord with the respected Sikh leader Arjun Singh Longowal, who was until then in detention post-Operation Blue Star, had now been freed. There were back-channel talks, as a result of which an agreement was signed. In fact, while he was locked up, sort of detained at a circuit house in Udaipur, which was declared a central jail, I was able to reach there with the help of a friend, Amarjit Singh Sarna in Delhi, a Sikh businessman and activist, with a bunch of questions for him to do an interview, probably his only interview during his detention. That was published in India Today. Now, he came out of detention, and after long negotiations, Rajiv Gandhi and he signed a settlement of the Punjab issue. That was called the Punjab Peace Accord. Arjun Singh, as Rajiv's most trusted political lieutenant, had played a stellar role behind the scenes. He was a cabinet minister, but he was the one who had been put behind the scenes to lead this dialogue with Sant Longowal and his colleagues. No surprise then that Rajiv trusted him to oversee the accord's implementation. Hence the governorship of Punjab at such a young age for him. In fact, as I shook his hand while stepping out of that plane, I somehow naively wished him a brilliant 5 years of governorship. the fact is that until then, I did not know him well at all. I was still quite new to political journalism, to national political journalism. I had met him in Bhopal, but that is when I was on my way from Bhopal to Jabalpur to cover the court-martial proceedings of 6 soldiers who had mutinied after Operation Blue Star. That is something I've spoken to you about earlier in the past. In this case, getting off the plane, maybe I got a little more attention because along with me was Arun Puri, my editor, who said, look, a peace accord has been signed. There will be some celebrations, some events. There was going to be a celebration of the peace accord at Anandpur Sahib as well, at the Gurdwara. So he said, I also want to come and see what's happening. That's why he was around, and probably that got me a bit more attention from Arjun Singh. That's how, trying to act familiar as we reporters often do, I somewhat naively wished him a brilliant 5 years of governorship. Arey bhai, young man, I do not know you very well, Arjun Singh said, but do you want me to remember you as my friend or my enemy? He asked me. He wanted to finish the job quickly and get back to the political mainstream. He was an ambitious politician. He was not going to retire as governor in any place, nor was that his agenda. His agenda was to re-establish politics in Punjab and come back to his own politics. His stint in Chandigarh, though, was longer and patchier than he would have wished. Within months of his arrival, separatists assassinated Sant Longowal, exposing the limitations of the accord and the tenuous peace it had brought, because the militants had never accepted the accord. They did not want action to stop so quickly. They wanted to go on fighting, and they thought that after the bitterness of Operation Blue Star, Mrs. Gandhi's assassination and serial massacres of Sikhs, they had sufficient grievance, a pile of grievance to play with, and they had weapons and ammunition which was coming from Pakistan quite freely at that point. Of course, Arjun Singh did not lose his cool even as Sant Longowal was assassinated at a congregation. He asked his trusted aide, IAS officer Sudeep Banerjee, who he had brought along from Bhopal, to get the pending applications of 5 of the senior most journalists in Chandigarh for upgrading their government houses. So if you had a government house in one category, everybody tried to get an upgrade. When you had a government house, their applications were pending. So he asked for those files. His first executive act within minutes of that assassination, of Sant Longowal's assassination, was to upgrade them all, not by 1 level, but 2 levels. Sure enough, many of the following morning stories talk not so much about his failure to protect his most valuable ward, but of how anguished he was, how anguished Arjun Singh was that Longowal never listened to his advice, to his entreaties to take personal security more seriously. In fact, more than criticism, he was able to get sympathy, or at least he was able to generate sympathy for himself, because he knew the value of controlling the narrative or the message. Was Arjun Singh media obsessed? Arjun Singh was too layered and fascinating a public figure to describe in one newspaper article, one obituary, as this one tried to do. This was published, by the way, on 5th of March 2011. But one of the more interesting aspects of his personality was how seriously he took the media, obsessed or not. Friend or foe, he never refused a journalist a favour. If any journalist asked for a favour, fortunately I didn't have to ask for one, he never said no. But at the same time, he was never shy of raising that dreaded question, are you my friend or enemy? Favour in his case, in many cases, was just central school admissions for people directly, or for their drivers, or for their colleagues' children, like that. But he never said no to anybody. When he was chief minister, of course, it was housing and a lot more. A chief minister has access to a lot more resources. During his full stint as HRD minister in UPA 1, the Indian Express, which I used to edit, both the paper and I were usually at odds with him. While we generally supported the idea of caste-based reservations, though with some important qualifications, we saw his move to spring OBC reservations on the entire higher education system without any preparation as some kind of a too clever by half ploy to unsettle the Prime Minister, that is Manmohan Singh. And this is to unsettle Manmohan Singh, where it would be politically unwise for him to oppose that policy and impossible to implement it in a hurry. In fact, we had many arguments about this, which I will tell you, but I will take a detour to tell you how Manmohan Singh ultimately handled it. He handled it quite cleverly as well. He was up to this. He, instead of trying to block it or trying to fight Arjun Singh because he knew that the party will reject it, the OBC reservation was a very sensitive issue, he set up a committee under his loyalist Veerappa Moily to find a solution. Veerappa Moily did find a solution whereby more money had to be allocated for institutions of higher education to increase the seats there in such a way that these new reservations could be accommodated without the general category and other category seats coming down. So the new OBC seats did not come out at the cost of the so-called general castes, and that's why the initial Mandal kind of resentment or protest did not build up, although I suspect that might have been Arjun Singh's idea. In fact, in the case of one of those arguments run on the editorial pages, with our usual bluntness, that I received an early morning phone call from him. And I quote him again, "I do not want to engage you in any long conversation," he said, sort of deadpan in clipped English. "I only called to tell you one thing." "And what is that, Arjun Singh ji?" I asked. "It is just that had the man in whose name you run the paper, the Indian Express," that is referring to redoubtable founder of the Indian Express, Ramnath Goenka, "had he been alive today, you would not have lasted in your job for even one more week." I had that kind of relationship with him. He said, of course, I would have also told him that Ramnathji had left, but he had also left a formidable legacy and equally a successor, and that our freedoms were actually very secure with them. But he had no patience. He said, "I told you, I do not want to enter into an argument with you." He said that and gently put the phone down. Gently, he did not bang it down. It was a tribute to our old-fashioned political tradition that in spite of so many differences, he was always willing to give me time. My last long conversation with him was when he was recovering from a sudden attack of painful herpes on his face, on the left side. He talked to me in a half recline, his face unshaven for days because of the herpes lesions. Of course, he told me in detail where I had got my reading of politics, particularly politics of caste and poverty, completely wrong. But then, maybe because he was distracted by pain or just generous with me because I had come to look him up in this awfully distracting sickness despite our arguments, he began to speak expansively about himself, almost letting his guard down, which those who knew him better would tell you was extremely rare. "Why did I return to politics?" he asked. "Only because I discovered that within the Congress, even at the senior-most levels, there were people who were in such a hurry to junk Rajiv Gandhi's ideas." A little background to this is that under Narasimha Rao, once again when Narasimha Rao became Prime Minister, Arjun Singh thought it was his turn. He was a more deserving candidate, and he gave Narasimha Rao enormous trouble, finally splitting the party from within and also constantly getting Sonia Gandhi suspicious that Narasimha Rao was undermining her, the Gandhi family and Rajiv Gandhi's legacy. So I knew that background. I come back to the conversation now. I said, "You mean, Arjun Singh ji," I asked, "are you saving Rajiv Gandhi's ideals from a party led by his own wife and son?" "No, not that," he said. "It is just that none of the others were close enough to Rajiv to know what he really dreamed for India." He said Rajiv, not Rajiv ji. Then he went on to describe the days when he, as Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, accompanied Rajiv deep into the countryside, where we lay on cots in small inspection bungalows under star-filled skies and exchanged our ideas for the future of India. It was at this point that I saw his eyes moist a bit. And I quote him again, "One thing I will say about Rajiv," he said, "his sense of patriotism was always palpable." Now, for a moment I was inclined to tell him, "Arjun Singh ji, hum sabka bhi to sense of patriotism is palpable. But I didn't say so because this was not an argument. In fact, through exactly 25 years of knowing him until he passed away, and both disagreeing and arguing with him intellectually, one thing I would never doubt was his loyalty to the Gandhi family. But that is what also made him so angry, even bitter. He thought that his loyalty was not adequately rewarded, as the ultimate prize, the prime ministership, was denied to him not once but twice. First by Narasimha Rao and then by Manmohan Singh, both of whom he considered lesser leaders than himself. Then inside their respective cabinets, he tried to run circles around them on his, and he presumed the Gandhi family's favorite issues: secularism, social justice, etc., etc. In both cases, he was outmaneuvered, and that too by politicians he did not consider half as sharp as himself, that is P.V. Narasimha Rao and Dr. Manmohan Singh. This, more than his many chronic health problems, angered him in his last years. Also the feeling that the Gandhi family had let him down, that they had the option of giving him the prime ministership twice, but each time they denied it to him, once preferring Narasimha Rao over him, and second time, somewhat more directly, Dr. Manmohan Singh. But his political mind remained razor sharp to his last day. His party, his friends as well as detractors still miss him and remember him. So all we journalists, for whom he was a fine example of the traditional Congress politician, so accessible, even if we mostly disagreed with him.